Major League Journeymen. No, I didn't like that one. Hold on, let me do it again. I like it. Ready?
Boop, boop,
Let's
boop,
go
boop. All right, restart.
again. Major League Journeyman. Yes, I like that one better. I like that one better. Okay, we're back. Great to see you, fellas. Hey, I want to start. Dax, we start with you a lot because you are just a little bit more handsome than Gordo is. But Gordo
Facts.
is asking for advice recently in the text chain, and Gordo's got some things going on, but the priority right now is how to win at pickleball. And
That is
he's now come
that
to you,
was
Dax, for
Yeah,
advice, which is
of course, as he
scary,
should.
number one.
As he should.
But Gordo, can
that
you
was
shed a little
confidential.
light on what's going on
That was
with your
confidential.
pickleball
That was,
approach here?
dude, you don't know how confidential that was. What are you doing? What are you doing?
We're
Hey, I'm
spicing
and
things
foremost,
up, dude. We're
I'm blowing
spicing
you up.
things up.
Yeah.
you know what, dude?
You've never played pickleball before.
I
Put him
have
on blast.
never-
Crazy.
I have never picked up a pickleball racket before.
Pickleball
I've never
paddle.
touched the ball, a paddle, whatever it is. So there you go. So I've been challenged,
Okay.
to a pickleball match.
Uh-huh.
And this other person thinks that they're going to smash me. Like literally is so confident that I'm going to lose. I don't lose much in anything. I'm pretty great at everything, you know?
Ooh, okay. Here we go.
Like Dax.
Yeah, you
Dax, but listen, I can do this one of two ways. I can come at Dax and throw some heat, or I can give him some kudos. Okay, so
I like kudos.
Dax is a competitor, as are you, Garx. You're good at pretty much, not as much as me and Dax, but you're good at some other things, and you like to compete. We used to do a 3-point contest before, in San Jose, and
Yeah.
you're a competitor as well. Dax is,
Also,
he's been
the winner of the 3-point contest.
You were
Thank you.
a
Thank you.
very good shot.
All right, keep
Philly
going.
proud. Anyway, Dax has been putting out a lot of pickleball stuff. So listen,
Mhm.
the competitor I am,
Mhm.
this person is lit me up. They've called
Okay.
me out, and I
Okay.
want just a little advice on how
Publicly?
to win my.
Publicly or privately?
This is a private deal.
Okay. All
It's a
right.
private deal, but I need just a little advice. I just wanted a couple tips of how to win my first ever pickleball
So
match.
before
And that's it. And I may be
yeah,
done.
before Dax answers, because Dax has been playing a lot of pickleball, I'm gonna say
I sure
two
have.
things. One, pickleball is an easy game, and you will not struggle with this game, Gordo. You're athletic
Love that.
and you're coordinated, and you're also long. You got reach. You're gonna
Ooh.
dominate. You got to get to
Keep
you got to
going.
get to the kitchen. Number one.
Keep building them up.
That's my one piece of advice. But number two, and this probably goes across the board, I love when civilians challenge former professional athletes and think
Yes.
they actually
Yes.
might win. It
Thank you.
it makes me laugh every single time, and I don't care what it is. I could be
Right.
the worst in the sport, but I'm pretty sure my persistence and perseverance is gonna outlast you in whatever it is. So
That's where
that's
I'm
just
at.
me saying my
That's
piece. So if anyone wants to challenge me in anything, please drop me a line because I could use it right now.
100%.
100%.
Dax, I'm sure that you got the same feeling when Kevin Egan realistically thought that he could beat you in pickleball. There's like a little
Yeah.
sense of like disrespect where you're just like, my God, are you
Yeah.
are a delusional human being, Kevin Egan, and I love you, but there's no chance I'm letting you beat me in pickleball.
Absolutely fact, but fair play to Kev. I think he entered into the Thunderdome with the strong realization that Sasha and I had kind of a little bit of an underlying advantage on him. So yes, he thought he could beat us and he thought he would get better quickly. But I mean, I just pummel him week after week, and it's just really hurting his ego. But Gordo, when I got that text, I was really happy. I was proud of you. Gargs gave you some good advice. Get to the net.
Yeah.
And I'm going to push back on Gargs a little bit, which I think if you play doubles pickleball, which I wanted to get some clarification. Is this guy challenging you with a partner to play doubles, or is he challenging you
No.
to one-on-one?
Singles. And I'm not,
Great.
I only have one.
Love
I
that.
Singles
only
is the
have one hit.
best, and you got
So-
no chance at losing.
Yeah, so
Okay,
singles
good.
is great, and I would push back on Gargs a little bit that singles is difficult because the court isn't massive, but obviously it is significantly harder to play singles than it is to play doubles. When you play doubles, you barely move, and it's
Agreed.
super
Right.
boring. I particularly don't enjoy doubles. I think there's a totally different strategy that's involved with doubles. You got to rely on someone else, and there needs to be coordination and communication,
Hmm.
and I don't. Nobody has time for all that. So I love playing singles because singles is like, hey, it's me versus you. And if you're mildly athletic and can get around the court, you're going to have an upper hand on pretty much anyone else. And so
Yeah.
get to the net. Like you're going to be fine. I mean, Garg so eloquently said, you're long, you're coordinated, yeah. And so I think you're gonna do well. It's just a matter of getting the like flight path of the ball down,
Yeah.
right? And
You
like
got to keep it low, right?
yeah, keep it low. Try to hit it at the opponent's feet, and you're gonna do fine. When is this matchup happening?
We're scheduling it. I just, well, we're trying to get it on the schedule between,
Syncing up
kids
calendars.
sports.
Okay,
Hey,
good.
let me just ask one last thing on this so we can move on. Can you smash it right at him? Is that like
Totally.
It's encouraged. It's encouraged. Dude,
encouraged?
it's
Yeah,
so hard to hit a
absolutely.
ball like this. Dude,
Right. Okay.
Smash that thing,
Done.
buddy.
Done.
yeah.
All right, cool.
And at feet. So if you do get to the net, smash it at them and smash it at their feet. Almost impossible to return.
Perfect.
But
All
I would
right. Thanks,
recommend,
boys.
Gordo, I would recommend at least hitting maybe once before you play a match.
I don't think I'm gonna have the time. So I'm
Buddy.
going in raw dog and it's going
Well,
and
has
it's
this
going
person played before?
oh yeah.
Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
buddy.
They wouldn't be as
This person
confident.
I
No.
know. I know.
I'm
They
gonna
play
take
all
I'm
the
gonna take
time.
the opponent. Sorry, bud.
Oh
I
no.
love you, but
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
taking the
That's why I'm
opponent.
nervous.
Well,
Yeah,
hold
I'm
on.
taking the opponent.
Let's set the
I'll let you know.
parameters here. Is this a best of seven? Is it a one like game to 15?
What do
What
you
are we
play?
talking
I
about?
don't know. What do you go to?
Do
I
whatever
know
you want.
nothing about this. Okay, well we'll play to 11 and I'll play till I win. I'll play till I get comfortable.
All
We'll
right.
probably do
Well,
we'll
good
probably
luck.
do best of
You
three.
seem
I'll
you
let you
seem to
know.
be you seem to be operating on the fringes of extreme sports because you're also competing in dodgeball that you're blowing us up on your Instagram feed about. Where is this coming from?
It's another thing. Somebody sought me out. They're like, hey,
Mister,
you're
Mister, I don't have enough time, but I'm gonna go play dodgeball in the middle of the
And
game.
pickleball.
hey, hey,
And golf.
people, everybody's just blowing my phone up. There was a dodgeball tournament, and obviously I'm a sought after man. I'm really athletic, coordinated. I'm long. I'm all these things. And I didn't get MVP on our team, but I was lacing people. It was one of the funnest times I've had in a long time. Just being able to just line up with somebody and hit them as hard as you possibly can. I threw my arm, but if you saw those, I'm throwing as hard as I possibly can.
Can I add a
I
little
couldn't reach.
Just being a bully out there.
Let me add a
Oh
little
yeah.
context to this. My son had his birthday party and he had it at like this Sky Zone place, which is basically like the big
It's a,
trampoline
it's a
stuff.
a delightful experience for
Dude,
adults
so
and
of
kids.
Oh
course
yeah.
I get the call up, right, to come into the dodgeball area where you can just jump like 15 feet in the air. And
Yeah,
dude, I am smoking kids, like
of course
just
you are.
absolutely crushing kids, right?
Gargs. It's the scene in Billy Madison where he's playing against all the third graders in dodgeball,
100%.
Oh
and,
yeah.
So
and
I took
Gargs walks in and says, "Now you're all in big trouble."
Yes, and I jumped on the young boys team. So I have a young son, Julius, that turned 6, and I have an older son, Felix, that's about to turn 10. So Felix and all his buddies were on one side, just killing the 6-year-olds, right? Just smacking them around as they should. So I jump on Julius's team, and I'm just picking out the 10-year-olds that are all like, just cruising into
A little
like these
arrogant.
little punks, right? And of course, of course it happens. I jump up and I'm going to hit one kid, and as I release, my son Felix jumps across and just wears it straight in his face. Like, I mean, I couldn't have hit him any harder in the face. Goes down. As this is happening, my wife is walking up and watching for the first time, and she's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, she hadn't said a word at all. Yells across the whole place. And I'm like, what? Dude, it was so bad. But it feels
That's
so
awesome.
good.
It
Dodgeball is the
does.
greatest game.
That's
Um,
great.
Speaking of youth, we do need to talk about a little soccer, and I think a great topic that we should start with, can start with here, because Dax, you called the game last night. The Philadelphia Union, who have for the first time, the lowest payroll in Major League Soccer, but also employ potentially the most talented youth player in the league, which is debatable and arguable. But heading off to Manchester City relatively soon. Is that at the end of this season? Kevin Sullivan leaving for Man City, or is
Two seasons, I believe. He
two
can't go
seasons
over
left?
there till he's 18.
Okay, so what a kid. Just a little Grom. But scores his first goal against Orlando last night. Dax, you called the game. Not I didn't watch that game. But I saw some of the highlights. And I think your early commentary was not only did he score his first MLS goal, but actually was a
Yeah.
legit force on the field and was a player. What did you see in person that
Yeah.
maybe stood out to you outside of the goal?
Yeah, I think he struggled a bit this year from the games that I've seen. And Bradley Carnell, you guys know this. I mean, when you're going through a difficult stretch and when you're going through a tough season, I think managers, it's really difficult to rely on youngsters and especially someone as young as Kevin Sullivan. He's 16 years old. I mean, wrap your head around that. What were we doing when we were 16 years old, right? And so
Playing
there's been
dodgeball.
hype. There's been hype surrounding this kid since he was 13, 14 years old. Obviously, the big contract going over to Manchester City when he turns 18. The expectations are through the roof. And I think Philly, I think they've tried to manage those expectations. And I think Bradley Carnell has done a good job of not trying to place unrealistic expectations on a kid that's so young. But
Hmm.
I think Bradley Carnell's hand right now is going to be forced. He has to put this kid on the field because early this season, when I would watch Kevin play, the pace of the game was too much for him. He looked like he was physically unable to keep up with what Major League Soccer players typically it's required of the physical aspect of it.
This is
And
the
I
first year where I feel like I've seen him turn into a little bit more of a young man. Like his
yes,
physical profile looks like he's put on a
that's
little
where I was
body.
going with this is that this game was an eye opener for me to see him in person and to see him not just catch up to the pace of the game, but also the physicality of the game. So there were numerous moments where Orlando City defenders were trying to body him, trying to win the ball off of him, basically be really physical with him, and he could ride challenges better than I have seen him do in the past.
Hmm.
And his decision making has been questionable at times. He's inconsistent. He's young,
Sure.
but he got subbed into the game after three consecutive starts. And my biggest criticism of him was he looked unsure of himself in the final third. You could tell he had technical ability and skill and talent, but he wasn't putting it together. And that's not his fault because Philly is a complete mess right now,
Yeah.
guys. They're the worst since Sporting Kansas City won last night. They are the worst team in MLS points wise. So
Right.
Philly is a disaster. But Kevin Sullivan, after he got subbed into the game, was the best player on the field last night. And he scored his first goal, really well taken goal. And he just generally had a really good feel for the game. And I thought it was a perfect game for him to come into because it was against an Orlando City team that concede goals for fun. It was against an Orlando City team that is wide open defensively. And so he had time and space to operate. And it looked like he was playing with much more confidence. And you could tell once he beat a guy off the dribble, once he made a key pass, he just continued to grow into the game and he made really good decisions. And this is on Bradley Carnell because he was playing Cavan as a left midfielder in most of the games, a left midfielder, a left interior number 10. He actually subbed him into the game and put him on the right. So he was inverted and could come inside on that left foot. And his combination play with Nathan Harriel down the right-hand side of the field, it got Philadelphia back in the game. And his goal was really well taken. If you haven't seen it, it's a great finish. He plays a long ball to Ben Bender, who's playing left fullback. He continues his run into the box, and
Yeah.
Bender has a great one-touch cross back to him. Really cultured finish. I was really impressed by what I saw with not just Kevin Sullivan, but on the other side of the field, a 19-year-old for Orlando City named Justin Ellis, who was the best player in MLS Next Pro last year and is really getting his chance in the first team. Again, in the first half, when Kevin Sullivan wasn't really on the field, Kevin came in around the 40th minute for an injury. Justin Ellis, guys, blew me away. He
Yeah.
plays really similarly to a guy who they will be getting in the summer in July named Antoine Griezmann. And so I was shocked at what I saw. The composure this kid had, the way he wiggled out of pressure. He created three breakaways off of excellent balls in behind that Philadelphia backline for Martino Hayda. I mean, It was just a really impressive display from two young players who are teenagers, and that's the future of Major League Soccer.
Yeah. Gordo,
That, that
you've been around a lot of you played a lot of years, but also the league at the time that you were playing, I think was a different breeding ground to try and get young players into first team minutes, right? And I think, Dax, you hit on it. You feel like Philly has handled Kevin Sullivan's maybe developmental path pretty well, which I would agree with.
They've had kid gloves on him. They don't want to put too much on him too soon, and I
And
understand that.
yeah, and that's
but
I think warranted, number one, but also like where I was going and where I'd like to hear from you, Gordo, just in terms of your outside perspective, is the setup of Major League Soccer today is so much different to actually providing a step-by-step pathway to give these kids realistically an opportunity to succeed, to fail, to succeed, to fail, to step to forward, back, forward, back. I feel like when we were playing and when they tried this stuff, there's really only one option. You either get in and you stay there and you don't move, or there's no really kind of like regression to be able to move forward again. When you're looking at it now and you're seeing these kids, do you think the difference in intention in the league is any different today, or are we just in a different place and will we see a lot more of these players have sustained success, not just the kind of the blips on the radar?
Yeah, 100%. I think the pathway for them to be prepared to step in and play first team minutes is much better than when we were playing because back then the young guys it was almost like, you know, how many young players did we see that get to the first team and it's really exciting and they sign, but then they sit and they're not getting first team minutes because there's better players before them and they're not getting a lot of minutes. Back then we played reserve games. Like and
Hmm.
reserve games back then were
They were a joke.
not they were a joke, an
Hmm.
absolute joke. So their development, I feel like a lot of the time it just halted. There was just not a lot of opportunity for these guys to take steps and be ready to get in. And then they would put them in and they're not ready, but there's no backup plan, there's no league, there's no structure for them to get
Yep.
real sustained minutes that you can go and monitor them and watch them grow and help their progression. That's how
Hmm.
that's how that's how I feel it was back then. Today, like I'm curious how what you think, Dax, about Cavan, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's better because Phillies, the only time that young guys would get chances back then is like kind of like a situation where their season's almost over. I mean, they're
Yeah.
they're basically out of the playoffs at this
Yeah.
point. So that gives a real opportunity to just put them in and just keep them in and let them
Totally.
grow and do all those things. Do you think it's better to give him starting minutes every single game and just be like, this is our guy. We're going to watch him through the ups and the downs, or do you think it's better like him coming in as a sub and getting other minutes
That's good. I have an
with the
opinion on
second
that, but
team
go
and,
ahead,
and
Dax.
all the things?
So this is a tricky one because I think you can go either way. It's six of one,
Yeah,
half a dozen of the other. I think for Kevin Sullivan, now that Philly is in the position they are in, I think Bradley Carnell has to put more on his shoulders and has to rely on him to go play minutes and to just let him express himself and play free.
Mm.
Because I think Bradley Carnell is in a situation, first of all, where the roster construction from Philly is abysmal. They let go of five or six key players, about 1,000 MLS games between them, and excellent quality players that led you to a supporter shield, and you replace them with players who I haven't seen enough from who are actually going to make Philly legitimate. They just aren't. They're just not good enough to replace those players. So now the infrastructure to play those veteran guys that have come in isn't what it needs to be. So you have no excuse. You have no creativity. Kevin Sullivan is the only guy on that roster who provides you a different profile in attack until his brother Quinn Sullivan gets back from an ACL tear. So I
Yeah.
think you have to play Kevin as much as possible, give him more responsibility, let him flourish, and basically tell him, look, if you have a bad game, if you have a bad moment, it's okay. Like, we're not
yeah,
competing for a championship this year. The Philadelphia
right,
Union aren't. But I also
yeah,
think back to Omar Gonzalez and his development, where he came in and had a lot of responsibility on his shoulders, and he was in an environment that was stable. a manager that had so many class players in an environment that really helped him thrive and put a lot on his plate early. And so his development also was great. I don't think development is linear. I think every player is a little bit different. And I think if you ask Kevin, he would be really frustrated with how his season has started because he started a few games. He's been on the bench a few games. He hasn't really played 90 minutes. He's been the first sub whenever he's started. But I think in terms of his specific moment right now, I think that this is the best thing that could happen to him. Be on a team that's not really competing because the pressure's not really on him. Like, of course, there's going to be a spotlight on him, but the pressure to produce in really high leverage big games, it's just not there because Philly's not competitive.
I
Yeah.
I I see the viewpoint, Dax. I probably disagree a little bit.
Good.
More
Love it.
so, more so because I agree with you. Philly's done. They're done this year. They're
Yeah.
out. But I do think, and I've been on teams like this where you start to play young kids just because they're young and just because you want them to develop. It ruins the entire environment because now you've set a standard that doesn't exist anymore. You're just saying like, hey, this kid's going to play because we need to get him minutes, and it doesn't matter if he makes mistakes. It doesn't matter if he performs. It doesn't matter whatever. We're now looking at 3 years down the road,
Yeah,
which
but what if he is producing?
if he
Which
is
he
producing,
wasn't,
of
which
course,
he
okay.
wasn't in, which he wasn't the first 10 games of the season, but neither
Mhm.
was anyone on Philadelphia. You know, their leading goal scorer before last night had 2 goals, Milan Olaski.
Right.
So
I,
my point is, if you have a veteran guy who you're paying $1 million, but he stinks and he's not producing, or you have a 16-year-old who has a ceiling up to here
mhm.
and you can get him minutes and he could potentially produce for you, that's a pretty easy decision for me, especially
Which
if you're
I
not
think
competing
is
for trophies.
what Bradley's doing, right?
Yeah.
He's saying, okay, my guys that I have already started with are not producing, but he's also shown us and told us that Kevin Sullivan isn't the best option right now either. Because if he was the best option, he would have been on the field on all of those 90 minutes for all 10 of those games. So I think that it's a delicate management situation, and that's where I think that you have to recognize it's not just about Kevin Sullivan. And if we're being realistic, they've already made the business decision to sell this kid to Man City, so
Yeah.
that's already done. They're not
Yeah.
going to get any more value out of this by producing
Sure.
a better product, and I don't think that they can ruin their environment with the amount of players that they still have in it that are still going to be on that team after this season is over by just saying, "Oh, we need to develop Cabin and give him the keys to the car." I think it is a little bit more nuanced than that as they navigate the rest of the year because there's still a long way to go. Where
Yeah.
and whether they're out or not, I don't know how. I haven't looked at the standings. I know they're at the bottom of them. I don't know how deep in the hole they are, but we all know that by the end of the year, you catch a good run and you can, sneak into a play-in game, and then all of a sudden your season's not over. I just think it's a little bit trickier. I would like to hear though, the other, I think the other shining star in the league right now, Julian Hall, who is a couple years further down the road, but Red Bull, who has a track record of developing youth and prioritizing youth, have done it pretty well. This is an interesting one because you have the opportunity to get him in the academy. You get Michael Bradley around him, and then you also have him in the next pro environment, and then you move him into the first team. There's so much consistency, and I think maybe just comfort around it. And now you have a kid that is absolutely flourishing, and I mean just flying. Talk a little bit about the difference there, Dax, in what you've seen. And I know you were just out at the facility. I'm sure you're
Yeah.
around those guys. You're hearing a little bit more. Give me a little context around maybe the philosophy that they've had with him, but also kind of how they're feeling about what the next steps are for him too.
Yeah, the scary thing about Julian Hall being as good as he is right now in Major League Soccer is that he's about a year and 3 or 4 months older than Kevin Sullivan. Like Kevin Sullivan, 16 years old. He turned 17 in September, I believe. Julian Hall just turned 18. There,
Yeah,
there's there's not a big gap of there's not a big age gap there. And whereas it took there's a year is still big, Gargs. As you know, you work in youth development. You work in a youth club.
it's a
That
big piece.
that year is a big piece, but we're not talking about a very wide gap. And so Julian Hall, he was at Red Bull 2, MLS Next Pro with Bradley Wright Phillips, like working every day on the training ground with one of the best strikers in Major League Soccer history.
Right.
And so that development speaks to what Gordo was talking about a little bit earlier in the show about the infrastructure. The infrastructure wasn't in place in Major League Soccer even 15
No.
years ago to help kids who were really talented and really young not just be good players on the field, but be good people off the field too. It just wasn't there. The clubs weren't investing in it, and it wasn't there. There was no infrastructure for it. And so now you get these really integrated teams that put tons of money and tons of value into their youth programs, and it helps these kids act like a professional. They're exposed to more things that will help them grow up a little bit faster, mature a little bit quicker. And Julian Hall, if you've ever heard him speak, he speaks like a 30-year-old veteran. He's got a really humble, good head on his shoulders. And I think that speaks to where Red Bull is as an academy right now, putting so much value and emphasis on this youth movement under Michael Bradley. And so, whereas Cavan is in a situation with Philly, who has an excellent youth development system by and large on their own, but now he's coming into a little bit more of a chaotic first team environment. Julian Hall's in a first team environment where everything is tailored to meet his needs. And he beat out a designated player, Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting, in preseason. And Michael Bradley said, listen, you are ready, and I'm not just going to let you start games and play games because we want to sell you for 8 figures. You're going to help us win.
Yeah,
I think
I think is the key, because that's a mentality piece too. And it affects the way that everybody else is playing alongside of you.
100%.
Can't discredit that piece of it.
And I think it helps that there are other pieces from that Red Bull 2 team that Michael Bradley led to an MLS Next Pro title last year that have also been integrated into the first team. It's not as if you just say, hey, Julian Hall, this is all on you, kid. Good luck. You have Adri Mehmeti, one of the best number 6s in Major League Soccer right now as another teenager. You have Matty Dos Santos, who's playing as a left fullback, and obviously not as much hype around him, but has been a really solid piece to their puzzle this year. And so Red Bull has been inconsistent because guess what? Young players are inconsistent. You're not going to get a 10 out of 10 performance every single week. But you know what you will get? You will get a kid that is talented enough and has a cool enough head on his shoulders to score the youngest hat trick in Major League Soccer history last night in Julian Hall. And here's another little nuanced thing, a little difference between Cavan and Julian Hall. I think it's a no-brainer for Philly to have a pre-arrangement with Manchester City to say, look, we'll figure out a transfer fee, what we think would be fair market value for when he's 18, and we'll agree to the price. So it's a fixed price, and now here you have it. But if Kevin Sullivan explodes and is unbelievable next year and is scoring 10 goals and getting 15 assists in MLS, what would the price be for him on the open market? Man City doesn't care because it's a fixed price. Julian Hall, one of the leading goal scorers at 18 years old at Major League Soccer right now, there is no pre-agreed price.
He's going to reset the market.
The price of the brick is going up for him. So you now have a situation where Red Bull is going to be lining up offers and stacking them in front of these kids and saying, hey, as long as we hit a certain number, you guys choose where you think would be best for your development. So I think it's a really fascinating difference between what's going on in Philly and Red Bull.
Gordo, who's the best young player, like starlet, that type of profile that you played with in your career, that you were around in the environment?
So there was one kid, I didn't play with him. So my last 2 seasons with the Galaxy, I was planning on transferring into the academy, being a coach. That was my future plan. So I would get done with training and I would go train with or I would go help assist with the Galaxy Academy. And this kid, and dude, and by the way, that was the first time. This is 2015, 2016. And Galaxy, I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve compared to a lot of other programs and about where they were with their youth. And these kids like blew me away. It was like U15, U16. There was a kid named Efren Alvarez, a lefty, if you remember him.
Yeah, on the Galaxy
guy.
Yeah, little chubby guy, and he was chubby, but he had the most cultured left foot. He was. It's hard to say this, but he just had this feeling and this maturity on the field that I had never seen before. The way that he played, and he was playing 2 years up, and he could just handle it. And I remember. He was just so hungry, right? I would go out there after training and he would want to do like the crossbar challenge. And I was like, nah, I'm a little sore because he would have beat me. And I'm like, I'm not going to lose to a freaking 14-year-old, you know? And so he was one of them, but it's really hard. And I'll draw some parallels to Cavan since he's been, this is like the Cavan show, but with him, we're watching how he's just dominating the MLS Next, whatever it was, the
Yeah.
Pro Academy
MLS Next
at
Pro.
that time. He was top three in the league, if not the one, but his physical stature, it was always just a question between the coaches and the staff and the director. Will he mature? How is his athleticism going to resonate and fit
In a
into
first
playing
team
against?
environment, yeah.
Exactly. That was always the question. And I think, he has the talent to go be one, he's got the talent to be a great professional player and he's playing for Chivas right now, but he played for the Galaxy and that it just never got to that level to where he could have if he developed a different way. Cavan, I've always been really interested in how he's going to do the same thing. And going back to our initial conversation, I think the two guys that I think about was Freddie Adu, who was in my draft class, who was also 14, and Cavan
Yep.
beat him for the youngest guy, and Michael Bradley, since we're talking about him as well. I
Mhm.
remember watching, New York the Metro Stars,
Yeah.
and Bob Bradley's playing his son at 15 years old, who had no business being out there against some of
On the
the other
field.
men on the.
Yeah.
He didn't, but
No.
he
Yeah.
was like, "I'm just going to do it. I am just going to play this guy." And listen, turns out to be one of the best players ever in U.S. soccer history because he was given that opportunity to play all the time.
Yeah.
So with Cavan, I agree more with Dax. Like instead of, like the young players that make it are given that opportunity to go and play day in and day out.
Freedom to
Otherwise,
make mistakes. Yeah.
freedom to make mistakes. And Bob was like, "You're my guy. You're going. You're going. You're going." And then he goes off to Europe and becomes a great player. Freddie Adu was the same thing. It's crazy that the hype around Freddie Adu back in the day was crazy compared to Cavitt. I don't think anybody really knows about Cavitt. I mean, Freddie Adu back in the day, he was like a celebrity.
He was
But
a
he was
celebrity.
also
Yeah.
he was a celebrity 100%.
He was
And
on
that's
Campbell soup cans.
And
Like,
that, but yeah, that's the difference here. That's the difference here is that I think it's been really insular in terms of Kevin Sullivan protecting him from getting all of these different opportunities. I mean, Freddie Adu was in a Sierra Mist commercial with Pele when he was like
Yes.
15. I mean,
Yeah.
these are things, and look, Freddie has even admitted this himself because Freddie is going to be a guy that I played with on the under 17 men's national team, and I played with him at the under 20 World Cup because Freddie is a cautionary tale. And I think a lot of young players and a lot of agents and a lot of coaches and a lot of sporting directors look at Freddie and say, we just don't want that to happen again. We need to make sure we keep these kids humble, even if they're superstars and super talented. They actually have to start getting there and producing consistently before we're going to open them up to all these different marketing deals and all these different ad campaigns and the social media stuff. And so I just even look at like a guy like Andy Nahar, one of the most talented players that I've ever played with at DC United. He was similar situation, an absolute starlet. Uh, and he came from a different situation than maybe a Kevin Sullivan, where he came from Honduras. He was a humble kid, didn't come from much, and you could tell he was just a street footballer. And you could tell right away he was going to have an unreal career. And if it wasn't for injuries, he would have gone to the very top. He played with Sasha Kljestan over at Anderlecht in Belgium,
yeah.
and I remember hearing and seeing rumors Arsene Wenger from Arsenal is circling around him because that's how good he is. And then he was on his way to go to the Premier League, tore his ACL, and he wasn't the same player since. But now he's the best right fullback in Major League Soccer, still playing at a high level. But again, these kids, it's a really delicate balance of being able to know how much to push them and is it too early and not shatter their confidence if they make mistakes, give them the freedom to make mistakes. And I think that we're going to not really see hopefully another situation like Freddie's because Freddie's is sad. Freddie was the most talented player I'd ever seen and I had ever played with. Freddie was embarrassing MLS players at 12, 13 years old. It was truly phenomenal.
I was around Freddie when I was at Georgetown. I would go in and train with DC United, stayed in the summers, and Freddie was there. And that experience was really interesting to me, and it probably informs some of my opinion now on how they handled Freddie and how I watched that with Peter Novak was the head coach there. And they had a bunch of big personalities in that roster. Like that was Eddie or Ernie Stewart. They had Marco
Ben Olsen.
Echeverry, Ben Olsen. Who else did they have? Aleko was there. So like they didn't have like small. Bobby Convey was there. He was a young kid. So like there was there was a lot, and they were at the time, DC United was the darling of the league. They were it, right? Them and the Galaxy, um, and watching kind of the way that they handled Freddie was problematic for me, and it probably and I could see how it grated on all the players that were there that basically just had to watch him fail and watch him act like a jackass and grow up and mature in front of their eyes while basically the staff just goes, yeah, that doesn't matter. Like he's the guy and he needs to be the guy. That was an interesting experiment, which clearly the league and I'm sure, all of those individuals have learned from. But it probably speaks to what you're saying, Dax, is, that they have, I don't know if they've necessarily coddled Cavan, but they've
Yeah.
protected him in a different way than Freddie was protected
Yeah.
growing up, and Julian Hall probably even more so because he's in New York, not in Philly. No one gives two thoughts about who Julian Hall is. But also at the same point in time, like you see the success that he's having now, and he will be handling probably a different layer of spotlight moving forward for the rest of the year, for the rest of his time in the league. He's clearly doing things that nobody else is doing.
Yeah.
The league is also, and I want to throw another layer in here before we move on, like taking an investment from KKR and exploding what their next pro environment is going to look like. So expecting to see like new stadiums and new franchises and building a league below MLS and what ultimately happens within that space. I think what we're going to see is much more polished players at 16, 17, 18 years old that will be
Sure.
taking these spots and that
1000%.
will not be just kicked to the curb by first team players, but will be also in an environment where they expect that, like, yeah, they do need to perform in order to keep their spots, and it's
Yeah.
understood, not necessarily this smack in the face by grown men that are in a professional environment and can body you off the ball both physically and mentally, and then kick you to the side, and there's nowhere for you to go anymore.
And what's it's a good point, Gargs, because what's the difference between the best European clubs and academies in Major League Soccer? At in Europe, you're considered young, a young player at 17, 18, 19 years old. In Major League Soccer, you were
Mm-hmm.
considered young at 22, 23, 24 years old. That's
Mm-hmm.
just fundamentally not the case. So when you move that number down and when
Yeah.
that number goes down and you are considered a young player then at 17, 18, 19 years old, getting minutes for a first team,
Yep.
then and only then can we say, all right, now our rosters, we can spend more money in certain areas of the team because we have three players who we developed in our own academy who are consistent contributors for the first team. You have to have that if you want to be successful in MLS 3, 4.0, whatever you
I
want to
think you
call
can
it.
also have a new balanced set of expectations for those kids too, though,
Sure.
because up until this point, we've thrown them in and be like, well, this is our 17-year-old starlet and he's supposed to score 10 and 10. And if he doesn't, like it's a failure and he's done. And we're also a failure. And so are these players. And that's unfair across the board. We have to be able to let them fall on their face, pick them back up, let them fall on their face, pick them back up, and give them that space to grow. That has to be the case. I think MLS is certainly trending in that direction, which is a wild thought experiment because the other piece of this, which we haven't really touched on, is the players' longevity and their careers are furthering further out. Like we're talking
Yeah.
about, okay, like a player's career was over by the time they hit 30. Messi's what, 38? And he's still playing at the top of the world. And
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a stretch for us to say. Like there's always been this question mark of, okay, Messi's coming to the league. He's kind of done. Can he play anywhere else? Dude, Messi can play wherever the hell he wants.
Yep.
And I'm a firm believer in that. So now, and it's not just Messi. The way that these players are taking care of their bodies, we're realistically looking at probably 20 plus years careers for
Yep.
players in this space. That's for players that can handle it. That's pretty wild.
I don't
Agreed.
know. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that as we see this progression, I agree with you because these kids are going to be more and more ready, and we're catching up to the European model, is where these guys in the academies are ready to go play, get some first team minutes in the Prem. But then their careers start so much sooner, and the miles on their legs and all the games just become that much more. So I think that the career length is going to shorten with that. I think it's going to start earlier. It's going to be the same length, but you see these European guys like, I could name a million, like Joe Cole or like Sean Wright Phillips, and these guys by the time they're 31,
Look at hey Gordo,
their bodies
I'll give you a perfect example right now.
name
The
them.
conversation around Raheem Sterling. And I know this is not
Exactly.
MLS related, but the conversation around Raheem Sterling is he's 30, 31 years old. He can't get any games at Feyenoord in the Dutch league.
Thank you.
And now people are
Yes.
like, is his career over because he started so young?
Exactly.
Okay,
That's where
but
I think where it's going.
that's
It's
more of
just
a mental
moving this
thing,
way.
don't you think?
No, it's
No,
not.
I
I
don't think
just
it's
think
mental. I think there's
these guys'
absolutely something
legs.
physical about that. No
There's
question.
physical.
Raheem Sterling was playing in the Premier League at like 17.
Yeah,
Theo
you only
Walcott
have.
playing in the Premier League at like 17. These guys'
I
bodies
think.
gave out on them a little bit earlier than others.
I think that's what the point I'm trying to make is that you only have so many miles on your legs. We started. Dax was a little bit earlier. What Dax? What were you? 19,
I was
20?
18.
You were 18. So you lasted a
There
long
are
time,
outliers, Gordo.
but
There
you're
are
small.
outliers.
Yeah,
But you're
but we
small.
didn't.
Thank you.
But we didn't start playing real minutes till we were 24. So my career length of actual miles and plus back in
22.
back in the yeah, but getting real games and doing the grind and all that kind. I
Well,
know we were in the
we played
grind,
different
but like
positions. You never played real minutes. You didn't have to.
that was that's true. But you know what I'm saying. I just think you have so many miles on your body, and then your body will get old a lot faster. When these guys, some of these guys that we played with, I remember them saying they've been in the league for 10 years and they're 28, 29.
Yeah.
That's a, and when I was, I was getting into my prime, but I was 33,
Hmm.
so I just think it's going to move up just a
Yeah,
little
no,
bit. I don't
I
think
think
that they're
that
going to play.
that's a fair point, Gordo. But I do think that the way that we're taking, not we, because I'm I'm past it, with the soccer space is taking care of players' bodies, that it is a completely different picture than what it was when we were just slamming Celebrex and hoping to God that we could tape this thing together. And that was, that does not look like what it looks like today. So I think that those windows are stretching out.
Yeah.
I also think, like, we had this argument before, uh, players like, quote unquote, in their prime, I think is maybe not necessarily what we used to picture it as. I think
No.
and it also, to Dax's point, is probably a sliding scale,
Yeah,
from when
that's
you
where I'm
start
at.
to when you finish to where you're at. Like,
There's always going to be outliers like Messi because let's be honest, physically Messi he doesn't have to have the same output as a Sebastian Berhalter or as
sure.
a young a Paul Rothrock, right? Like you're going to work on both sides of the ball. Messi is the best attacking player in MLS. Just go and attack, don't defend. So he saves
Hmm.
his legs when he has to.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, every player's responsibility looks different than the other
Yeah.
one, right? But I agree with you. Yeah, pretty crazy. I do think that the youth movement is only just beginning here, which, like, Julian Hall for me is going to reset the market for what MLS can do and what they can export, which will only validate kind of all their investment in where they're at, which is exciting for this sport in this country. I
Can we end the show on a fun hypothetical and just kind of throw out what I want to throw this out to you guys because I don't know if the dinosaurs are on social media a ton, but one young player that we haven't even touched on in this episode, which absolutely we should have, is Xavier Gozo from Real Salt Lake.
Yeah,
There are on MLS Countdown last week, we had Jesus Perez, Mauricio Pochettino's assistant, on, and we interviewed him.
right.
And he said they had their preliminary roster already done, but he was watching Salt Lake, Dallas, and he name dropped Diego Luna, and he said, and a few others, who have caught our attention.
Sure.
My powers
Duh.
of deduction
Duh.
told me
Yeah,
2 + 2 = 4, and
right.
Gozo is definitely being watched by these guys.
A
He is
hundred
not. He
percent.
doesn't. He doesn't have a U.S. men's national team cap. I don't think Julian Hall and Kevin Sullivan, they don't have a chance to go to the World Cup. I think Gozo has a legitimate chance to go to the World Cup because of how he's playing right now. So if you are Pochettino, and based on how good Gozo has been this year, and based on the positional needs, Serginho Dest's health, whatever you want to call it, would you take Gozo to the World Cup, Gargs?
As an outside back,
As a
former,
wingback, as a
former.
fullback, as a winger? He played as a winger yesterday and he scored 2 goals against Houston. I don't know.
There is. This is the easiest answer that probably you've ever positioned me with on this show. This is 100% yes. This guy should be on the roster.
Spicy.
He should be going. And you're talking about like, and this is probably a departure from my opinion in general,
Yeah.
in the way that we handle youth. But this guy has performed now for years in plural. He's
Yeah.
been around. He's been performing for Pablo. You're now also taking a guy that has U.S. men's national team World Cup experience, that has been mentoring this kid and
Yep.
putting him on the field and trusting him. And it is an easy 100% because he is a product, dude. He is a player. He can handle it.
He's a freak.
Dude, if
Yeah.
he doesn't step
How
a
do you
minute,
know? How do you know he can handle it?
because he's handling it.
He, no, he's not handling it. He's playing in the
He's never played for the
MLS.
national team.
You
That's
can,
where
the thing.
Gordo's coming
Here's the
from.
thing.
He's never played for the national team.
I have never had this little of respect for one of your opinions in my entire life. He says 100% yes. It's
Yep.
100% no.
No,
Oh,
you're wrong.
God, that's
No,
so spicy. I
wrong.
love it. I'm
You're wrong.
host.
No,
Okay,
no,
here,
I'm not.
here,
I'm
you
not
can
wrong.
jump
I'm
in.
not wrong.
Gordo, you can jump
No,
in. Let me finish. Let me
still-
finish where I'm at.
Wait.
Let me
Okay,
finish
good.
where I'm at.
We're still experimenting. Okay, go ahead.
What do you mean we're still? What does that even mean?
Oh, wait, we're just picking guys. The last 4 years have meant nothing for the U.S. men's national team. His first cap is going to be against Paraguay.
Paraguay.
Yeah.
Like, come on,
Well,
dude.
if
No.
he
No.
ultimately makes the 11, yes. But there's
Oh,
no reason. I haven't
I
seen.
hope he
We
does
have not.
well
We've
in
been
this
talking about
pressure environment. I hope. We're hoping.
Gordo.
Yes, he's
We've been
good.
barking about this
Let's
roster
see how
for
he does.
4 years, and we haven't seen anything that stands out to us as a guaranteed lock. Our best defender in Serginho Dest has been injured for the past 4 years, hasn't been around. This makes no sense. Here's what I know. Here's what I do know. Players that can handle the spotlight, and this is across, I think, across industry, not necessarily MLS to World Cup experience or national team experience. If you can handle the spotlight and you can perform in a layer where you can handle that pressure and take it in, you can do it at whatever's next. You may not be able to deliver the same cross. You may not be able to apply that right away, but you can jump into an environment, in my opinion, and provide value. If at the end of the day, all Gozo is a threat in training, he's arguably the best outside back in the league right now, today. So from a pool perspective and a roster perspective, even if that's all that Pochettino uses him as, 100%, it's easy.
Gargs, I understand that you never played for the national team. I get it. So I'm gonna give you a little pass.
Okay.
But
Shots fired. I love it. It's so spicy.
I'm not saying that, I'm not coming on here and saying that he can or cannot handle it. He probably can. Okay, because I agree with you. But there is a big,
Okay.
big difference between MLS play and him getting hot at the right time
Good point.
and
In the World
being
Cup.
at a World Cup, dude.
It's a
Agreed.
good
Being
point.
at a
Okay.
World Cup.
There are differences in all those
not,
things.
it's not even close. And what I'm saying is you cannot, and Pochettino, I think, would be foolish. I think he's foolish for not having him in camp and giving him some games
Agreed.
and some opportunities before this.
Before,
But
okay,
he's
yeah,
missed it.
for sure,
He's
but
already
that's
missed it.
revisionist thinking, Gordo.
You
Here's the
can't
thing,
you
Gordo.
can't go
I,
back, dude, and
Alan,
we cannot hope without
let
seeing
me
somebody.
let me use your government name here,
Oh,
Alan.
yeah. I was to say, Allen comes out.
You
Gargs
were
is
That's
serious.
tough.
you
That's
were
tough. I
a
heard him. I heard
you
him.
were a very good player, Gordo, but at no point in your career were you the best option in the nine in the league. Correct?
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
Okay. The
Yeah.
national team gave you an opportunity to come in and be a part of the team, of which you performed. Why
You
would
played a
that be?
role, Gordo. You
Why
did.
would that be a departure from what this position is or the viewpoint? This kid is 10 times better than you were at your position, and we're now talking about his potential inclusion in the roster for the long term. You guys are sitting here telling me that we need to invest in these young players and give them the minutes and give them the experience. Why would we not?
Name one player in history for any country except for one of these small islands whose first, or they don't even make the World Cup, but their first cap is in the World Cup.
I'm
Like
not
it
saying I'm
does,
Gordo,
not saying he has to get a
it's
cap.
Alan, the only
then
pushback.
what? He's
You know the good thing about this pod is that there's three of us, and so when two people vehemently disagree, the third can come in and
You've
kind of
been
be that
enjoying this a little
kind of.
bit
I've
too
loved
much.
every minute of it, and I love being the gargs of an episode to stir it up. But I can come in and kind of arbitrate this, and then also give my opinion. Gordo, to answer your question you just asked about name one player who's had a first cap at a World Cup. Maybe they didn't get their first cap at a World Cup, right? But now we're just talking semantics here. Bruce, he brought Landon, he brought DeMarcus at 18 to 2002, and no one thought they were going to start, and they were the best players on the team. DeAndre Yedlin, Jurgen brought him the 2014 World Cup, and he balled out. And he definitely did not deserve to go based on his history. So look, I see both sides, I really do, and I agree with Gordo. Some of the points you make are very pertinent, and Gargs, I agree with Gargs and some of the points that he makes. If it's me, I'm taking him. I'm taking the kid. Serginho Dest, your best outside back, has been injured for a very long time. You don't know what his form and fitness is. Alex Freeman, very good player at Villarreal, hasn't played a ton of minutes. He can play as a center back. I just think Gozo provides you so much versatility and so much excitement where if you don't play him a minute, that's fine. You don't have to play him a minute. Look at Julian Green. He went to a World Cup. He scored a goal. And he didn't
Oh,
deserve to
dude,
go.
don't
What?
don't bring him into this.
But
He didn't
it's
play well in
it's
that
a
World Cup, and we left Landon at home. Are
but
you
that but
joking?
my point is
Right, but
the,
we're not
the
leaving
point
Landon
is
at home. There's not a
yeah,
Landon
exactly.
to leave at
There's
home
not a
in
Landon to
place
leave
of
at home.
Gozo.
Gozo, if Pochettino took Gozo and left Pulisic at home, then we would have a chat. All right, but that's not going to happen. I think you have a 26 player roster, and there's a couple players that you know are going to be your stalwarts. They're going to play every game. There's a couple players who might be a project, and maybe their form is so great that you have no choice but to bring them and just say, you know what? I'm going to size this kid up and I'm going to give him a chance, even if he maybe plays 10 minutes, or maybe he doesn't play at all, but we're going to give him a taste because he's earned it. I agree with Gargs 100%. I think the form he's in right now, I think it's a no-brainer.
I got to go watch this Gozo guy play.
Oh, mic drop from Alan. Alan and Daniel. You guys went about 12 rounds there. I really enjoyed that.
I'm
Thank
just
you.
talking shit. It's not the kid. I'm just, like I said, dude. I just think
No,
it's
you make some good
poor.
points. Alan,
I just,
Gordon,
it's
you
poor.
make some good points.
It's poor scouting, dude. He should have been
He should have been
involved
in earlier.
if
I
he's
agree.
if he's this good,
He's a
dude.
baller.
Like
Go watch him.
I'm
Go
all
watch some of it.
yeah.
That's a different conversation, though. I agree with that completely. And we've talked about that ad nauseum. That what the hell is this guy doing with these rosters? Why are we not calling? But again, and this is probably bullish from me as a former MLS player. A lot of these guys should get calls. These MLS American players should be getting calls
I agree
because
with that
they can
100%.
do it. They can do
I
it.
agree.
Your
I
point
agree.
is
I'm not
valid.
saying they're not. Yeah.
MLS versus national team is different. I'm not disparaging that. But if you can perform here, you should have an opportunity to at least attempt to perform here. And my gut tells me that you can, based on what I've seen up to this point, yourself included. So,
And just to be fair to Pochettino, I agree that some of his rosters have been a little confounding, but they do value Major League Soccer. They do.
I think so.
They have called in a number of MLS players, some of whom didn't deserve call ups in my opinion, and others who have. I just think you put you guys know this. The national team is not the collection of the most talented players that we have in our country.
yeah, it's a soup.
It is putting the pieces of the puzzle together where maybe this guy isn't as talented as a different player playing in Europe somewhere, but he will add something different to the roster. That is what the national team is. Bring those up.
Full bag. You got to have a full bag.
You got to have a full back.
Bag. back. Dude, you gotta have a putter. You gotta have a freaking driver.
Full bag, full bag. That's what we'll finish this on. Gentlemen, you were fantastic. Gordo, 10 out of 10. Dax, 9 out of 10.
Damn
I'm
it.
somewhere in the middle. Love you guys. Journeymen, we're out. Adios.